Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. My name is Juliana Shirkova, and I am a member of Synchronized Skating Technical Committee. And I am joined today here with Roberta Ghiriani, also a member. Hello, Roberta.
Hello, everyone.
We hope that you all and your relatives and friends are doing well these days. Take care and keep healthy. And we're going to start. Today, we want to go through the changes to this coming season for our discipline. So let me first introduce the agenda of our meeting. During the presentation, we will go through well-balanced programs for next season. We will list all published communications valid for next season. We will speak about general changes applicable to all elements for the new season of 2020-2021. So let's get started with communications valid for the new season. According to the ISU Council decision, the ISU communications for the season 2019-2020 regarding well-balanced program for all categories will remain valid for the new season. So these are communications 2236 and communication 2238. All of you are quite familiar with these communications. We have also published 3 new communications applicable for new season. It is communication 2317 that comprises difficulty groups of elements, features, and additional features. Communication 2318 contains referees, judges, and technical panel deductions, and introduces the guidelines for marketing the GOE and program components. In communication 2322, you can find the abbreviation of elements and additional features and scale of values of the synchronized skating elements valid for next season. And now let's move on to communication 2317 that contains difficulty groups of elements, features, and additional features. First, I would like to speak about the general changes. So the general changes mostly affected the organization of the document. All additional features have been moved from the separate appendix to their respective elements. Elements and some of the features have been reorganized in alphabetical order. The list of errors were removed and will be listed in the technical handbook only. And the levels of some elements have been revised to ensure that all elements will lower only 1 level for the error and not drop 2 or 3 levels. It concerns mostly pivoting block and twizzle element, but you will see it a little bit further in our presentation. And now let's move on elements for specific changes. Artistic elements. We have blended group A and group B together in one group. This season, we decided that there was no sense to keep 2 separate groups. And now rearranged features give the opportunity to creativity and the possibility to have any combinations of features you want. So it's up to you.
I would like to highlight also a few things about the artistic elements which might be important to remind. In the artistic element, it's permitted to execute 2 features at the same time. For the pivoting feature, there is no required amount of degrees to cover, so pivoting must be only recognizable. And for the change of configuration feature, if you want to include it, all skaters must participate in both configurations to get the feature counted.
Thank you. In general features requirements for artistic element, you could find the phrase that the shape of the artistic element is permitted to disappear momentarily during some of the features. One of the very common questions from coaches and technical panel is, how long is the momentum? So we try to answer this question. Actually, there is no time specified. Your goal is to have clear shape at the beginning and clear shape in the end. What happens in between may or may not have a good shape, but we would like to encourage the creativity in this element, so it's up to you. So now let's move on the next element, group lift. In the Communication 2317, the feature change of position of the lifted skater has been renamed. The new shadow title is two different positions. When you will set up a pre-group difficult entry for the next season, please remember that lowering and raising movement after the pre-group and before entering the main position must be done as a continuous and endless movement.
I would also add something about the pre-group lift. Coming down from the pre-group lift, the lifted skater can touch the shoulders of the supporting skater, but the lifted skater cannot stop on shoulder. There is no amount of time defining if the touch of the shoulder is acceptable or not, but it is okay as long as the coming down and going up is a continuous movement. If the lifted skater is lowered at shoulders level but without touching the shoulder, is also acceptable, but also in this case, the lifted skater cannot stop at that level before going up. And finally, another important thing to make you think also that a pre-group lift can be done without lowering the lifted skater. So you could also build up your pre-group lift position and moving directly into the group lift main position without lowering the lifted skater.
I totally agree with you. Now let's move on. It is an intersection element. The general changes affected the feature back-to-back approach. This feature have been removed from the chart and placed in the general element requirements for all levels, except for level 1. In fact, the requirements for back-to-back approach for the intersection have not been changed. It has been only reorganized in different way. So as it has been last season, in order to get level 2, 3, or 4, all skaters must be back-to-back during the approach phase. For the intersection level 2, all skaters can be forward during the approach phase. And now we are going to discuss further the requirements added to some specific intersections. For the whip intersection, we have deleted the exception for two fast-hand skaters. These have been done because the goal is that the whip intersection, in the whip intersection, skaters have to intersect at the same time, not like simultaneously. Also, when you will read the requirements for the whip intersection, please pay your attention that now whip intersection must be done only with 8 skaters in each line. This means that if a team is comprised of 12 skaters only, and will try to do a whip intersection, this intersection will not get appropriate level 3 because the requirements for this specific type of the intersection will not be met. Before I will start to speak about this slide, I'd like to pay your attention also to the number of skaters required for the angled intersection. Angled intersection must be comprised of 2 lines of 8 skaters each line. So it is the same as for the whip intersection. If the requirements to the number of skaters in each line is not met, the technical panel will not count this intersection as an angled intersection, and the level will be given accordingly. Going back to the slide, the new changes affected the approach for the angled intersection. Next season, there will be no need to glide the whole approach phase with holds. We wanted to allow interesting transition into this element. Now it is permitted to attain connected hold before the lead skaters start to overlap, unless skaters executing continuous backward rotations. So, in fact, it means that an angled intersection is permitted to be prepared without a hold at all. But be careful with this. It is permitted only if skaters are executing continuous backward rotations during the whole approach phase, and there is no gap to catch each other. So just be careful about this. We would like also to pay your attention to the rotations done during the approach phase and point of intersection for angled intersection. It is not a new information for the next season and was already permitted last season. If a team uses several rotations before going through the corridors of the angled intersection, and in this case, first 360 or 720, will be counted as a part of the approach phase. And the last one, 720 rotation, will be counted as a PI rotation, counted for the level 3.
Yes, I would also like to add that for the angle intersection, in case a team is trying a point of intersection 3, it's important to clarify that the backward pushes are permitted in between each 360 rotation done actually during the approach phase, but the last 720 rotation must be done without a push in between the two 360 rotation then that comprise the 720 rotation, since the requirement says that the 720 rotation for PI3 has to be continuous.
Yes, I agree. In the following video example, you will see permitted rotations both in the approach phase and point of intersection. So you will see a 360 rotation, push, second 360 rotation followed by a push, and 720 rotation to go through the corridors of the intersection. Two first 360 rotations are counted as a part of the approach phase, and the last 720 rotation is counted for the PI. So now let's move on to the video example. Let's go on and move on the linear and rotating elements. In the Communication 2317, you will find a clarified description to the feature change of position. We added requirements to this feature to specific elements, block, line, wheel, and circle, and you can discover all these changes by yourself in the Communication 2317. And now I pass the word to Roberta.
Okay, we move on with the move element. What is new in the move element this season? This season, the requirements for each level are organized differently than last season. The move element level will be called accordingly to the number of correctly executed features, like in many other elements. As you well know, there are 4 features: change of position, and there are no changes from last season; difficult entry, which is actually a new feature; intersecting and or passing through. There are no changes also from last season for this feature, but we will go through a little bit through the definition to make clear for everybody what we are intending with intersecting and passing through. And the last feature that you can choose from is 2 different types of different FM, which is not completely new. And we will give you some clarification also about it. About the new feature, difficult entry, which is completely new, the requirements state that half of the skaters has to execute the difficult entry at the same time to be counted. There is no requirement that state that skaters must be attached while executing the difficulty entry. There is also no specific amount of time for the difficult entry to be counted, but it's important to remember, this is the main thing to remember, that the difficulty entry must precede the free skating move. Different difficulty entries also can be included in the program, as long as there are at least 4 skaters who will also execute the same FM, executing also the same difficulty entry. In Communication 2370, there are 2 examples, but the difficulty entry possibilities are not limited to these 2. The difficulty entry can be achieved with a difficult 1-foot turn preceding the free skating move. In this case, pay attention that no change of edge is permitted. This means that the exit edge of the difficult turn must be the entry edge of the free skating move. And another example that is listed in the communication for a difficulty entry is a jump or a dance jump just preceding the FM. And please refer to the definition of a jump and a dance jump in the special regulation to make sure that it will be counted as a difficulty entry. Now we will also show you an example of an acceptable difficulty entry for a move element. In the video, the difficult turn, a backward outside rocker, is done just preceding the free skating move in this case is a forward outside spiral. The exit edge of the rocker is exactly the entry edge of the spiral. So let's watch the video together. We can move on the next feature. As I said, in the new communication 2317, we added a definition for the feature intersecting and or passing through to make it clear for everybody. Let's have a look at the definition. So intersecting is a movement which occurs when there are only solo skaters involved. The movement refers to a solo skater passing in between two other solo skaters. In this case, all skaters intersecting will be counted towards the feature. Also, the end skater of the intersecting movement will be counted. For example, if there are two lines of four skaters each, approaching from opposite sides and intersecting with each other, all skaters involved in this intersecting, this means 8 skaters in total, will be counted towards the feature.
Roberto, may I also remind that backward spirals are illegal when executing the feature intersecting. This concerns only unsupported spirals when the free leg is extended to the back and unsupported. Backward 135s or 170 extensions are not considered as illegal and are permitted during the feature intersecting.
Exactly. And then if we look at the definition of passing through is a movement which occurs when there is a pair or group of skaters involved. So the movement refers to a skater, a pair, or a group of skaters passing in between two other pair or group of skaters. Or you can have a pair or group of skaters passing in between two individual solo skaters. Only the skaters passing in between the other skaters, meaning the corridor created by the other skaters, will be counted towards the feature. So pay attention to count exactly the number of skaters passing through that corridor. This is counted. These skaters have to be counted towards the level.
I would also like to add that unlike the intersection feature, backward spirals are permitted during the passing through feature. So it's you're free when you're doing backward spirals and doing the passing through at the same time.
Exactly. About the last feature listed for the move element, last season skaters had to include in the move element 2 or 3 different types of FMs, depending on the level they wanted to achieve in the element. Now, 2 different types of FM has become a feature. To get the feature called, it's enough to execute 2 different types of FM on 1 foot. But this means that in free skating, we can have up to 4 different types of FMs, as it was before actually. The other FMs included in the move element can be executed either on 1 foot or 2 feet. There are no restriction. As long as 2 different types of FM are executed on 1 foot, you will get the feature counted. There is also a new choice within the FM3 list. Is defined as spiral 135 degrees with a change of free leg position, with or without a change of edge. The free leg in this FM must be fully extended, unsupported, while it changes position. It's important to remember that each type of FM must be executed by at least 4 skaters. And also each different FM must be executed by at least 4 skaters to be counted. Otherwise, the call will be FM-based. We will go through now the definition of type of FM and also different FMs together to make it clear for everybody. Any FM listed in the free skating moves chart will be considered a type of FM and are considered to be different than the other FM listed in that chart. Instead, a different FM is considered to be one type of FM executed using different feet or different edges, or different skating direction. For example, a right forward inside spiral is considered to be different than a right forward outside spiral. In this example, the same type of FM is executed as spiral, but on different edges. If the same type of FM is executed using different skating direction, it is also considered two different FM, and the same if we use two different skating direction. Again, about the different FMs, it's important to remember that at least 4 skaters must execute each different FM presented. We want to spend a little bit more time on this because it's really important, otherwise the call will be FM based, as I said before. For example, if the same type of FM is executed on both edges, there must be at least 4 skaters executing that FM on each edge. The same case if we choose to execute one FM on both feet or in both skating direction. In other words, the exact same FM, meaning the same type of FM on the same edge, in the same skating direction, and on the same foot has to be presented by at least 4 skaters. And one last thing about the move element, or actually about the free skating moves included in the move element. In case you choose an FM with a change of edge or a change of rotational direction, keep in mind that in the short program, since all skaters will have to execute the same type of FM, but they can also use different feet, the same FMs starting at the same time, they have to change edge or rotational direction, depending with what type of FM you want to do. They have to do it at the same time. Instead, in the free program, skaters executing exactly the same FM, as we said before, the same type of FM on the same foot, on the same edge, and in the same skating direction, has to start and also end, and in case change edge or rotational direction, also at the same time. Back to you, Uliana.
Okay, now let's move to the next element, no-hold element. As you can see on the slide, it is now permitted to start the no-hold element in any closed block formation. So you're free on choreography for this element now, but do not forget that the formation should be a closed block during the whole element and in the beginning as well. We also have increased the difficulty for the pivoting feature of the no-hold element. The pivoting now must be done with turns or steps, depending on the level a team wants to achieve. You can see the requirements for turns or steps for specific levels on your screen. There is no limit for the number of linking steps between the steps or difficult turns. The steps or turns may be presented individually or in a series, and there is no limit on the number of linking steps, turns between or in between the turns. So it's not so hard to make a new pivoting feature for this season. The element. First of all, extra features have been renamed to features. Other changes have affected level 3 and level 4. Now to get level 3, a team must execute one feature, and to get the highest call, a team must execute 2 features. We also added one more choice for the level 2. We had to do this, and it is a death spiral for at least 360 without any features. It was a formal level 3. Continuing to talk about the pay element, I would like to note clarified requirements to the feature difficult exit. The exit must be done on the same foot and edge as the death spiral, or as a movement to exit the edge of the death spiral.
Yes, Uliana, I think it's important to remember that, or it's important for a better understanding of this feature, that the difficulty for this feature was not defined specifically, is not defined specifically in the communication, since the feature is new and the technical panel can accept actually any difficulty during the exit. For example, a turn or a difficult turn, an FM of any level also, or a jump of any type can be accepted as a difficult exit.
Yes, it's true. Now let's move on a pivoting block. There are a few changes in this element. We added an option B for the pivoting block level 1. This option requires pivoting at least 90 degrees and one correctly executed difficult turn. With adding this option, we have found more balanced requirements for the levels of pivoting block. Now the levels are suited to good teaching progression for the teams rather than calling progression. Synchronized spin element. We have added new features for the solo spin. We will come back to them a little bit later. Together with the increasing requirements for the levels of the solo spin, we have reduced the number of required rotations. Reduced rotations now match the pair spin, so it will be easy to remember it. Let's move on to the new features for the solo spin. You can see the list of them on the screen. And I would like to mention that for all of the solo spin features except difficult entry, the feature must be fully achieved by all skaters and held for the required number of rotations for that level before the exit of the spin. There is no required amount of rotations before skaters must take a position. The number of rotations is counted once the positions are attained by all skaters. The requirements for the solo spin feature difficult entry say that difficulty must be done before the spinning action begins or during the spiraling edge. A difficult entry can be a difficult turn, free-skating move, jump, or a dance jump. This is not a full list of examples of difficult entry, so you are free and, as we usually say, creativity is encouraged.
Yes, Juliana, if I can jump in, the difficulty entry approach is the same for all the elements that have actually a difficulty entry. So we give some example in the communication, but those are not the only choices that you have. If you come up with a new or with a different difficulty entry than the one listed, you will get credit for.
It's true. Next new feature for the solo spin is free leg extended. To be counted as a feature, the free leg must be fully extended away from supporting leg at minimum 45 degrees. A slight bend of the free leg is acceptable. Another new feature for the solo spin is hand or hands above the skater's shoulders. That means that team can choose any position of the hands, providing that at least one hand or both hands are held above the skater's shoulders for a required number of rotations. And the last new feature for the solo spin is supporting or holding the free leg. Free leg may be straight or bent, held to the front, side, or to the back. It doesn't matter. And must be supported or held by one or both hands in the following two manners: either the blade or boot of the free foot or at the knee level. But if using the supporting of holding the knee, hands could be placed above, below, or under the knee. And with that, I'm going to bring up to Roberta.
Thank you. My turn again. So we will look what's new in the traveling elements. We combined the traveling circle and the traveling wheel into one chart in the Communication 2370. And we created a list of features for each of them, which are kind of similar to each other, and we hope they are easier to remember for coaches, skaters, and also specialists and controllers. We also added a few new features to increase the difficulty. Let's have a look. So here is the list of features for the traveling circle. There are 3 new features for the traveling circle: number 1, number 2, and number 4. Actually, you will see just that we highlighted only 2 because change of position, number 1 feature, is new for the traveling circle, but actually you all know it because we already had this feature in rotating elements and also actually in the traveling wheel, and it will have the same requirements also for the traveling circle. About the change of relative position, we will say something more later on, because it's valid also for the traveling wheel. Instead, now we will focus on the sequence of turns and steps. That is a new feature for the traveling circle. This feature requires to include a sequence of 4 recognizable turns and or steps on one foot. Remember that all skaters have to execute the same turns or steps at the same time to be counted. But you can have half of the team executing on one foot that sequence and the other half on the other foot. Because, for example, you can execute that feature in 2 circles, maybe one side by side, rotating in opposite rotational direction. In that case, you are allowed to execute the same sequence but on different feet. Sequence, remember, that means that a maximum of 1 change of foot or 1 change of edge is permitted in between the turn steps. Nothing more. Has to be a small sequence of 4 turns and steps. This is the meaning of the feature. To place somewhere, like maybe with a choreographic also meaning in the traveling circle.
Let me add that it is permitted to do different steps during travel, but when not executing the feature for a sequence of turns. So for the sequence of turns, the turns and steps has to be the same, and for the rest amount of time of the traveling, teams can use different steps and turns and linking steps.
And you can play with the choreography. Yes. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, and this is the list for the traveling wheel. So those are the features. We highlighted in light blue the 3 new ones, and the 3 new ones actually are also permitted only in free program. We have to admit that we made a mistake. So in the list in Communication 2370, the feature number 6, intersecting, doesn't say that is permitted only in free program, but actually we had that information in the description of the feature itself.
I would like to know that for the shop program, the maximum possible highest call for the next season will be traveling wheel level 3. As you can see from the chart, we have 6 features, and 4 of them can be 4 out of 7 features can be executed in the free skating only. So the maximum highest level will be traveling wheel level 3. So just don't forget about this.
And now we talk a little bit about a new feature that is new for both the traveling circle and also the traveling wheel. To give you the idea of how this should look like, I would like to remind that there must be 2 circles or 2 separate wheels. 2 shapes must rotate in same or opposite. These 2 shapes must rotate in the same or in opposite rotational direction. And the 2 shapes must change their relative position compared to the start. If they start, for example, side by side, it's easy for me to show the circle, but if you start side by side, the 2 circles have to end up on the opposite side after the feature. Or if they start one in front to the other, like this, after the change of position, they have to end up on the opposite place. This is enough to get the feature called.
And when you will think how to set this feature, please consider that going from a circle in a circle, like a big circle and inside a small circle, to the interlocking shape, everybody knows the interlocking shape, this will not be counted as a change of relative position. To be considered as a change of relative position, the circles, like Roberta said, must change their position compared to their start, from one side to the opposite side. And going from inside to outside is not the same. So also, if a circle is within, it will not be counted as a change of relative position.
Yes, and in the communication, we also have some example of how this feature could be executed, but just some example. Like, for example, one shape could orbit around the other shape, orbit moving like around the other shape. Two shapes could intersect and change position at the end, or one shape could kind of like accelerate, so moving faster than the other and end up on the opposite side. About the feature intersecting, that is valid only for the traveling wheel, we would like to show you a video to give the idea how that feature could look like. We never had it before. In Communication 2317, we list two variations, and again, the choices are not limited to these two. In the first video, you will see an example of variation A, in which there is a three-spoke wheel with one spoke that rotates in the opposite direction compared to the other spokes. Note that the video is showing a rotating wheel with an intersecting feature and is not a traveling. We never had that before, but we believe that it's possible to include this feature into the traveling wheel. And we hope it will be also fun to watch. Let's watch the video. We also have a second video to show you an example how the feature intersecting variation B look like. In this case, we will see like two separate wheels in which one spoke of one wheel will intersect with another spoke of the other wheel. Let's watch the video also. Before was required to travel a certain distance to achieve a specific level in the traveling elements. And it was like that for many years, both in traveling circle and traveling wheel. But now travel a minimum of 10 meters is a feature. If the travel will cover less than 10 meters, this feature will not be counted. And only the feature correctly executed while traveling will be considered toward the level. So we made this requirement a feature, and we try to find other feature to create more movement into the traveling elements. This is the meaning behind our changes also.
Roberta, and in your opinion, what part of the traveling will be counted if the travel is interrupted using this feature?
Yes, has to be clear for everybody. It's not only my opinion, but the first part of the travel will be counted if an interruption occurs. As soon as the shape will start to travel, the technical panel will start to evaluate the element, and if an interruption occurs, then the technical panel will stop evaluating and will not watch what is happening after. We'll give credit for what was done till that point.
Yes, that's clear.
Yes, still something to pay attention in the traveling elements. There is feature number 1 that cannot be done at the same time as other feature like interlocking, weaving, intersecting, and also the change of relative position, but only if it's done with the intersecting movement.
Thinking about how the traveling circle can be choreographed for the next season, is it permitted to execute a change of position at the same time as the change of relative position when the change of relative position is being executed with the two shapes intersecting?
No. Just I want to make it clear that the change of position may not be done at the same time as the change of relative position when the change of relative position is executed with the two shapes intersecting. But the change of position may be done at the same time as a change of relative position if this is done in a different manner without intersecting, so in a different way, as we show you also some example before. Yes, also important for this season, and it's completely new, always moving towards giving as much as freedom as possible to coaches to create interesting programs. We open up the possibility to have change of configuration and change of direction also in the traveling elements. It is permitted for traveling circle in both short program and free skating to include the change of configuration. Instead, for the traveling wheel, the change of configuration is always permitted in free skating, but pay attention that in short program is permitted only before or after the traveling. Since in the well-balanced program communication, we have a required shape for the traveling wheel in the short program, the change of configuration has to be out of the traveling element itself. You can use it as a choreography part to start, for example, the traveling wheel, or to end the traveling wheel, but all the feature that has to be counted, that can be counted towards the level, has to be included in the part that the wheel, in which the wheel is traveling. Important when you plan your choreography is to remember that travel must be uninterrupted, even if you include a change of configuration. So this is new, and before it was not permitted because we were afraid also to stop the rotation and stop the traveling. But now teams could try or could challenge themselves, but pay attention that there is no interruption in traveling. Otherwise, the technical panel will stop evaluate your element. And as already said, the change of direction is also permitted now, and actually it's always permitted both in short program, in free skating, and both for traveling circle and traveling wheel. But let me tell you one more time that it's really important to remember that travel must not be interrupted even during the change of rotational direction. And remember that the technical panel will consider the travel ended when there is an interruption of 2 seconds or more in the rotation or in the traveling movement.
With all these new features for the traveling, the path of the travel can be any shape. It can be a curve, it can be a line, it can be 2 curves, it can be 2 lines, but in spite of the path, the technical panel should count the distance for the featured travel 10 meters using the full length of the ice or curved pattern. So a combination of 2 rotational directions or 2 configuration is okay, and technical panel must consider the whole way if it is uninterrupted.
Exactly. And let's move on the last element of our presentation, and also the last element, the last element of our communication. About the twizzle element. We also have a few changes in the twizzle element. For level 1, actually, we simplified a little bit, and we now permit to execute the 2 twizzle in the same rotational direction. This is more to open up possibilities for beginner skaters. We also have now 2 options for level 2 twizzle. So the first option was the one included also last season, 2 rotation on each twizzle, but we also have the option to have 3 rotation in one twizzle, for example, the stronger one, and 1 rotation in the other twizzle. Another new thing about the twizzle element is that now is permitted to execute 4-foot placement in between each twizzle, and that also jumps are considered to be a difficulty entry, not only dance jump.
Roberto mentioned that jumps are permitted as a difficult entry to the twizzles, so it means that jumps of any revolutions are permitted. Skaters can enter the twizzle with a double, triple, or even with a quad jump. Why not? So creativity is always encouraged. It's my favorite phrase for this presentation, I think.
Okay, and this is it. We would like to thank you for watching. And if any other clarification are needed, please contact us. Don't be afraid, just ask, and we will try to answer to all of your questions. We would like also to thank the ISU and the eLearning group for their support, and we wish the best to all of you, and we hope to see you soon on the ice.
Thank you for your attention, and stay safe and sound, and hope to see all of you very, very soon. So good luck.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.